About Speaking Shakespeare, Part 1. First, please note you can speak Shakespeare in any accent you like. All that matters is that your diction is good enough and your projection strong enough for you to be understood by any English-speaking audience. Please resist putting on a special Shakespearean voice. It sounds affected and is the kind of thing that gives Shakespeare a terrible name. Your own natural voice is best. To our modern ears, the Elizabethans would have sounded like a blend of Yorkshire, West Country and Irish. John Barton, co-founder of the Royal Shakespeare Company, has famously conjectured that the nearest surviving accent to this is found today in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. So BBC English, the accent of John Gielgud, Laurence Olivier, Ian McKellen, Judi Dench, Kenneth Branagh, Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Hiddleston, is, alas, a Shakespearean impostor. In contrast, if you have a rhotic accent, one that sounds all the R's, typically Irish, Canadian and some British and American regional accents, lucky you, you're already more authentic. That said, there is nothing wrong with RP, the non-rhotic received pronunciation of many leading Shakespeareans. RP's great merit is that most people find it easy to understand. It just lacks the greater musicality of the other accents mentioned. The second thing about speaking Shakespeare is that there is no one way to speak Shakespeare's lines, but there are a few wrong ways. Any old style does not work. The main reason for this is that the language is largely stylized. Verse has an architecture, by which is meant words are arranged in very specific ways to achieve a desired dramatic effect of mood, attitude, and sense. And yet verse is not poetry either, though it can be poetic. It occupies a space somewhere between prose and poetry. Accordingly, the speaking of verse cannot be too colloquial, casual, on the one hand, or declamatory and sing-song on the other. Shakespeare's prose also has an architecture, though not so readily discernible. Finally, prose and verse serve a number of different dramatic purposes, which have little to do with status as commonly imagined. The good news is that once the rudiments are grasped, the actor quickly sees the architecture is there to help rather than hinder. Shakespeare was a businessman. He needed his players to succeed. In terms of performance preparation, Shakespeare is essentially no different to any other creative discipline, be it art, design, music, or sport. Each has parameters and rules. These, in turn, give rise to the technique necessary to master them. Take, for example, Olympic ice skating. The stage is the rink, and you may not skate outside this architectural parameter. You may not wear rollerblades instead. You may not fall over without incurring penalties, and certain moves are banned. You may not take forever to complete your routine. Besides the official time limit, the audience will get restless. Yet, despite these irksome rules, Olympic ice skaters repeatedly find ways to give sublime performances. Moreover, to pursue the analogy, they get one set of marks for technique and another set for creative interpretation. The rub is that you cannot do a great interpretation without great technique, the very point emphasized by the scoring system. It is also true to say that technique alone is unlikely to secure you gold at this level of competition. There has to be some imagination and flair, some creative spark, some personal stamp. but fluid and seamless, not self-indulgent. The skill, therefore, is not to ignore the rules or parameters, but to make them so second nature that you transcend them. Pushing against walls produces great art, while anarchy leads to mediocrity. In Part 2, we explain why we record the speeches the way we do. There are a few surprises here, but all for good teaching reasons. It's only 4 minutes long and packed with interesting stuff, so please check it out.